Hello everyone, and welcome to a new video about Cta Division. This time featuring my personal tier list at the moment in Cta Division 2 as of now, with the newest patches after Black Sunday hitting home. So let's go. We will go through all these lines and put all these divisions in this tier list. And we will go down with all of them. So first of all, we start with Group of Viborg. And I think that's a good fit for B tier. Let's go over my tiers. S, A, B, C, D. S being a division that is always good, no matter the circumstances, and always outperforms even other divisions that are good on that map. A is a good fit on the right map, and always playable there. B is a good counter pick or good pick overall in really special circumstances. C is only pickable in the absolute most circumstances, and D is a division that always is not favorable. Like there's always a better choice. And yes, this is obviously for 1v1, but most of it also applies to team games. So now we come to 15 Scots, which obviously got hit with the nerf hammer, and because of 3rd Canadians being overperformers. 15 Scott though, it's rough. I think obviously they got nerfed. They were A tier before, and it's now somewhere between A and B. I would put them in B tier for now. They still for sure do decently. Now we come to 184th, and that's our first A tier division, being really good in mass infantry spam, having solid support for it in every tab, and yeah, overall just a decent deck. Pretty much the same goes for First Polish. They are for sure not S tier anymore. They got quite a couple of nerfs, IL2 nerfs and so on, so they're not S tier anymore. They are A tier as well. First Jäger, our first Axis division, I would put up into B tier. With this maybe, yeah, it's B tier. It's not that great all around on every map. It struggles with certain stuff, but the stuff that is good in this deck is pretty good. So that's why I would put it up here, since obviously Jägers got cheaper and so on. So they are B tier. Same goes for 25th Panzer Grenadier. Missing just the AA to be an A tier division. And obviously the infantry being a bit too many Panzer Grenadiers, as it is Panzer Grenadier divisions. The rest of the division is pretty good, the support, the recon tab and so on. But it just can't make it to A tier because of the infantry tab and the AA. First Lovash got nerfed a bit. I would put it in C tier for now. With the nerfs lately, I think it is not as good anymore. It was once at B tier, maybe like B plus even, close to A, but at the moment I think it is at C tier, and we have to see if it will stay there or not. Now we come to the first Allied division, Axis division that I would put into A tier, this being 20th Panzer, one of the best all-around tank divisions the Germans have. Can have a lot of Panzer IVs, which are the best all-around tank for 1v1 at the moment for the Germans, outperforming the Stuck by quite a bit. Having the IS-2 as the one like hero unit, and then also having a lot of solid infantry, having good support tab. Only thing missing in this division, which is why I would rather put it on A- than like upper echelons in A, is that the recon tab doesn't have any autocannon cars. With that, it would be higher up in A tier, but it is still an A tier division. Now we come to 21st Panzer, which I would put into B tier, because 21st Panzer is all around pretty decent. Only issue for this deck is that it is not quite cost efficient enough in what it does. It's all around pretty decent. It obviously also has the King Tiger, but the King Tiger is not as important for this division. As of now, it's the only division with a King Tiger. This will change when 16th Panzer rolls around, but King Tiger in 1v1 is not that important. The Shermans is what makes it B tier. The Shermans, the Panzer IVs, and the 222s. But yeah, sadly, too many Panzer Grenadiers, too little infantry. So that's why B tier is the place to be for this division. 26 guards goes to A tier. Is low A tier at the moment because AA is a bit lackluster. Infantry is meh, but like it's not meh, but it's like it's not that super amazing for the Allied side. And yeah, KV tanks though are super good. The air tab is also pretty good with what got with the IL-2 37s and so on. So yeah, A tier it is. Now we have 28 Figure, which I will also put in B tier. Together with the Skiers, they're like a good pair of like CQC infantry, not all around versatile, but with the buffs they got, they went up there, and that's where they stay. Now we come to 29th, and this is a division one of the few Soviet divisions I would put into C tier, and I always can't really put it on Y. It has IS-2s and so on, but it just never feels that amazing. The T-3485s are not that amazing in 1v1. It doesn't have Shermans like 3rd Guards Mechanized, 3rd Guards Tank Corps, so on. It doesn't have the great air tab that Viborg has. So overall, I would put it in C tier, even with IS-2s. Second Blindé. It's a great meme. It can be competitive under the right circumstances, but it has too little infantry. Infantry in many matchups just dies out. It has Shermans, sure, but Shermans got nerfed. And this division didn't got anything for it, really. Like, got a slight buff to its infantry, but not that huge. So, yeah, with the recent changes, I would put it in C tier. Like, it's up C tier. It can be B tier, I think. In other tier lists, I for sure would people would put it in B tier, but I will put it in C tier here. Now, second Guards Tank Corps. That's for sure a C tier division, if not even a D tier division. Do we put it in D tier? I think we put it in D tier because it's really not doing anything better than any of the other Soviet tank divisions. Like, it can be decent, but it doesn't do anything better. And like, it's just underperforming compared to all the other choices that you have in that regard. Now we come to 2nd Infantry, and a couple of weeks ago this was here, then it went to here, and now it's here. Its infantry got so many nerfs. Sherman's got the nerf. All of this meaning that this division by now is only in B tier anymore. Rifles ain't that great anymore. It has a lot of 30-point infantry. It doesn't have any real 20-point infantry anymore, which are an important part to be part of the meta. So it might actually like be closer to the bottom in B tier at the moment, which is really interesting. 252nd, a division I would put in C tier. It has good infantry spam. It has quite a couple of cool defensive tools. Issue of this division is you can't really go to defensive, and so as soon as you lose some points, it's really hard to get them back. The aggressive tools of 352nd are rather limited. So that's why I would put it here. 358, I would put into D tier, even though I knew you playing with it, but he could have done the same with a 4th or 7th Mechanized, which is coming later. He just decided to do it with 258 and had to play around it by not having a good AA and so on. Like, this division is just so heavily suffering under not having good AA. It's not even funny. And now we come to 3rd Guards Tank Corps. And this is a rough one because lately this division really underperformed in the league. And I don't know if it's because it was unlucky, if players played it bad, or if it is just really not that good anymore. Like, not that good being still A tier. But yeah, I think it's not S tier anymore. I think it's A tier. Especially now after the Sherman nerf and so on. I think it's only A tier. like Sherman nerf not being super huge, but I think it was close to A tier already, and I think that's what really pushed it into A tier now. For good, IS-2 is not being that dominant anymore. Like all of that, putting it here. It still has a lot of good tools. It's still a really good A tier division. It just doesn't have what it needs. Now we come to one of the division that got hit the most by the nerf of the Shermans, together with maybe 2nd Blinde and maybe 9th Cavalry. And that the 9th Cavalry got other nerfs that I think hit it harder. And that's 3rd Guards Mechanized, which I think was before an A tier division and is now a B tier division, though it might still be an A tier. It's a close one, but I would put it up here. Now 3rd FJ is C tier division. Just a lot of funny tools, but a lot of them are a bit too expensive, and like it struggles with too many matchups to be a B tier division. So that's why I would put it in C tier. It can be in the right matchup. This division can absolutely do its works. That's why it's not in D tier. And like I would guess I would put it a bit higher than 352nd, for example. This is like medium to upper C tier, but whereas this is more like medium to lower. But it's still not a division that is absolutely well rounded. I like playing it, but it's not that great. The same goes for 3rd US Armored, a division that in the right matchup, on the right map, can do well with its tanks, but the infantry, here it's the infantry that is the issue, and the infantry is just a bit too lackluster at the moment, so that's why I would put them into C tier. Now we come to 3rd Canadians, and gotta say, they're still up there. Sure, Shermans got nerfed. Sure, their infantry got nerfed quite a bit. Not gonna lie, but they just ain't toppable from up there. Like, they're much lower in S tier now than they were before. They're not, like, before you needed basically another level up here, but now they're a bit lower, but they're still in S tier. They're still such a well-rounded division. And I don't think they need many more nerfs. I think they deserve their spot in S tier, but they are still there. 3rd, yeah, VDV. And I know a lot of people will hate me for this, and people might think, oh yeah, only because you play them. But I actually think they are B tier division. They actually work out better on a lot of maps than other CQC divisions, I think, because you have the smoke off map. They are one big pony. If the enemy is like against the A tier divisions, they will struggle most of the time. But in a good matchup, they can absolutely work, and they have this super good aggressive power, and they actually have a lot of tools. Like the infantry, like it's not like one at 26 where it was all your infantry that you relied on, and your infantry was good. The infantry, like mediocre good. The infantry in this deck is really not what makes this win. It's more like a quirk. It's the infantry is what like takes your crown for you and puts the enemy a bit under pressure, but it has a lot of good support tools, I feel. Not amazingly good support tools, but the ad tap and so on is decent, so I would put it in B tier. 4th. A couple of weeks ago I would have put it here, because the win rate in Season 2 was absolutely horrible, and it didn't change much in it, but it just turns out that people maybe played it a bit too aggressively, that it is like not like, you know, people played, I think, a bit too much like Turina or Bitsuk Logo, instead of playing it a bit more on the late game, a bit more on the trading side of things, because this division can really go for the longer game with its T-35s and so on, and it turns out the matchups for it got also better, I guess. So yeah, that's why I would put it in B tier. Still quite a bit from A tier, I think, but all around decent division. If upper divisions that you want to play on the map get banned, it's still an absolutely decent division to pick. And now we come to the first of the Romanian divisions, 4th Munte. And this one, I think, is between B and C. Issue being that it gets its availability to tanks. Like, if the enemy is aggressive, it gets its tanks and stuff too late. If it is a more slower game, when the enemy maybe also doesn't get all its access in A to all its stuff, then it's a really good division. If you survive A phase in a solid state, it can be a good division. It has a lot of good tools, but the restrictions on it might be a bit harsh, so I would put it in high C tier, I think. Like, pretty high C tier, but C tier only. And now we come to what I think is the only Axis S tier division, maybe, at the moment. Still one upcoming where I have to decide on why we're doing this. Doing this a bit more on the fly, not with hard-coded stuff, like full-on written things out. 5th Cavalry, or 5th Mechanized, is a really, really good division. Really good infantry, solid tank tab, obviously a bit short on stuff, but yeah, everything else is good. The Regidas are good, the recon tab is amazing. All of this really, I think, puts this division up there. The infantry is just so cost efficient. Obviously, that's one of the main points at the moment, and it has just all the support tools you need. It will struggle a bit against Shermans, but with the Shermans being a bit nerfed, I think it really earned its spot up there. Now 5th Panzer, and that's absolutely a C tier division. Not excelling in anything you want in 1v1. Yeah, it's a tank division. There are other tank division that do stuff better. 5th SS, just right next to it, exactly the same. Like, has also an issue with 5th SS in my eyes. It's not deep enough. It has not enough card availability. Like, you can't build this deck really well out for Flatline, and Flatline is where the meta is at the moment, especially for tank division, or also Maverick. And this deck is, I don't feel it. I just don't feel it. Now Tartalek, and it's just a much worse Lovash. And yeah, it's just down there. It doesn't work out. Now 6 Airborne. And yeah, this is also a tough one. I'm close to putting it to S tier, but I think I will stay in A tier for now, because it doesn't have like medium tanks in mirror matches and so on. It kind of struggles with. Like, it's really dependent on your airplay. If your airplay is top notch, then you're absolutely fine. But you have to trade out with your AR. You can't lose it. And yeah, that's a bit of too much reliance for putting it into S tier. Now 78 Storm is by now a C tier division with same restrictions, with a bit more support tool maybe than 3rd FJ, but infantry is at the moment worse than 3rd FJ because they don't have the Luftwaffe Jäger, so they don't, like, the amount of cheap infantry in 78 was a bit limited, especially in the long run. Like, and that's, I think, what hinders it. Also, the air tab not that amazing. Like, everything else is pretty decent still. If you give 78 Storm too much time, it still destroys you. But it's a bit too fragile at the moment to be higher up there. Obviously, that was a division that was back in the day up here. At the moment, a bit too fragile. Together with 3rd FJ on the higher end of C tier, but still C tier. Now 7th Mechanized, and I can't play it. I, for the love of God, can't play this deck, but it's so good. And it's an S tier division. It's really such a well-rounded deck for the Soviets. Like, it's got everything you want to have as a Soviet, basically. So, other than cluster bombers or like AT planes, but it has good enough bombers that doesn't matter, because you can just bomb tanks. And with the PEs, and I wish I could play it well, but I can't. So yeah, but it's still an S tier division. 84th, I think, gets 84th cards. I think it gets next to Bitzuk Viborg. Gets next to Viborg. It's a decent S tier division. Nothing amazing. Yeah, it does a lot of stuff well though. Had IL-237s and stuff like this, so it's a decent division. Got obviously also like the IL-2 nerfs and so on hit it a bit, but it's still absolutely decent division. 9th Cavalry was as tier last before Black Sunday, is not anymore. It's a really good 8 tier division though. It still does everything it did before, just a slight bit weaker. Yeah. Only struggles in a couple of mirror matches, but like with the Kazakhi nerf to 20 points for the basic one with SVTs, and the Sherman nerf, it got a bit weaker. It's an 8 tier. It's still a powerhouse though, if you know how to play it. 8 tier obviously being absolutely viable decks at like most circumstances. Armia Craiova, it's a C tier, I think. It's just not really excelling in anything. Too many weak spots from AA over like even the infantry is decent, but it's a bit too expensive for what it does and all of that. Putting it into C tier. Now we come to something that really hurts. I'm really close to putting this lovely division here, Koruk, into D. I think it's C now again. It was D. With the HS 1 to 9 buff, I think it's just so C tier. It has the infantry spam, but it, for the love of God, can't deal with medium tanks well enough, cost efficient enough. So everything that throws T-34s or Shermans at you, you're pretty much screwed up against. And your infantry is cheap, yeah, but it doesn't deal that much damage as well. So yeah, it's good cannon fodder, but you need a matchup where you can use your support weapons effectively, and medium tanks counter them pretty harsh. So that's why, yeah, C tier now, with HS 1 to 9 at least being a tool that is somewhat useful against tanks again. They obviously missed their JU-87. It's really hard. Really, really hard. Now Butsak Logo, which I think is a B tier division. It's really solid aggressive deck. It's only aggressive, so yeah, it's the 44th, but in aggressive form, kinda, with the tigers and so on. And yeah, it's pretty decent. Now we come to First Polish. First Polish being a C tier division at the moment, with it being now after the rifle nerfs, getting a bit of the lower end of the stick. Like it's not really doing anything majorly well at the moment. It sure still has its 5/5 down, but one of the worst part for the First Polish is that they are in slow transports. So if they would not be in slow transports, they would be up there with, I think, 15 Scott. It's like a bit of a different version of it, with like different tanks and different planes and so on. But at the moment, it's only C tier because it arrives just late on the front line and all of this. So yeah, this is where it goes. Harteneck, being another German B tier division, doing its job pretty decent there. It's better than 14th Infantry that comes later. It has its solid Hungarian infantry. It has good. The Stormjägers are good, and so on. And yeah, like it does everything pretty decent. AA obviously being a bit lackluster, artillery being a bit lackluster. That's why B tier, not A tier. Everything else is pretty good in the stack. Tank choices and so on. Now Hermann Göring in A tier division. Didn't really got nerfed with anything lately, so whilst everything else around it got nerfed a bit, it stayed at its place in 8 here, and I think it's going strong there. So I like it at the moment. I think it's a good division. There's a reason why this division gets banned nearly all the time in League. It's for sure in the top 4 of the Germans. Now MGB, and this is a rough one to really put into, because it's such an interesting loadout. And yeah, it's between B and C, really. And I don't fully know. it's like, take this with a grain of salt. I played them quite a bit lately, and I did quite okay because they have a good air tab, they have a good infantry tab, but obviously only having one card of tanks makes you really predictable. Yeah, only having them being absolutely open to armored cars and medium tanks in A phase, like, kind of makes them C tier, because it's not only medium tanks, it's also armored cars that can bully you pretty heavily in A, and yeah, that makes you only B, only C. Now Panzaria Division, and Panzaria Division is up here, and I just realized that there's a one division missing here in this template, that being its brother division. Like the other Finnish division is missing, isn't it? Yeah, Raimabrapana and like both of the other German Fate of Finland divisions are not here. I will tell you after this one where I would put them. So Panzaria Division has a lot of good stuff. It would be A tier if it would have it a bit more consistently, but it often is limited in when it can pick that stuff, and it like only has one card of it, because obviously it's such a mix of stuff. So that like makes it versatility also a must and not just like a choice. So that's why it is B tier, but it still has the nice Finnish infantry. It still has a good amount of bomber spam. It still has quite a decent tank choice and all of that. So yeah, Raimabrapana would be in B tier as well, working out a bit differently though, and being a bit lower than Panzaria Division, would be on the lower end of B tier, with it being like having a bit of an issue with not having any tanks and stuff, and being too reliant on the air's play compared to Panzaria Division. 122nd would be actually C tier in my eyes. It doesn't have any major thing going for it. It has a good AT gun, but it is absolutely helpless in offensive warfare, and that's like putting it together with 352nd, but 352nd at least has the Yak Panther and so on, so it is a bit better in it, even still, and yeah, that's why I would put 122nd into D tier. So Panzer C tier. Not having any cheap infantry choices, having an artillery tab that is meh, having only, like, everything in this division is actually underperforming when it comes to cost efficiency. Like, they don't have that many cheap choices, and that's why I put them behind something like 21st Panzer, which has like cheaper infantry units, has cheaper choices, has the 222s and stuff, and a bit cheaper choices as well in the air. Not that much though, Fokker Wolves in both decks. So that's why I put them here. Turina now, also coming out in C tier. Not that amazing either. Having too many lackluster, like, it's not deep enough, and it doesn't have any great choices. It's really just a Soviet G34 division with, yeah, Strelkys. And Strelkys getting nerfed doesn't make it better. So that's why it is here. Now we come to another German AT division, being 1st SS, 17th SS. Goods from Berlichingen. Really good infantry tab. Really, the only thing that this division lacks is Panzer Force. Everything else is really good. Artillery tab is good. Anti-tank tab is good. Obviously also having the Krupp like the 122nd, but can use it as defensive tool by like setting up an offensive, has recon cars and all of that, has a good air tab, and the only thing lacking is a bit better tanks for offensive warfare, like Panzer Force, maybe even Luxus or something like that would help it out quite a bit, or Tiger card, because at the moment it has Yak Panzers and Stuk Force, and these are super good defensive tanks, but mounting an offensive with them is not as good, so you have to rely on your infantry mostly, and your artillery maybe setting up a breach with like Nimble Rifle 42 to allow you for a solid offensive. But obviously with SS Legionaries, offensives are still absolutely doable. Now 1st Blindata, and they just get next to 20th Panzer, being a pretty decent, like cheap infantry, having Panzer Force, having good recon cars, can even bringing in the 222 without having to get an Aufklärer, having a solid air tab with J-87D5s and cluster bombers, and so on. And like, nothing in this division is really weak. So that's why I put them here. Now 12 SS. Being between B and C tier, it is better than Lair because the infantry is a bit better and it has a bit better artillery tab and stuff, but it's still somewhat like most of the criticism that it's a bit less cost efficient than other decks that would be up here is fair, but it's a bit better than Lair. But I question if this is better than good enough that this is B tier, and I think it is not. I think it is not. 126 was C tier, maybe even D tier. But I think with the KV-85 and it's not being forced to go all out, and KV-85s being absolutely lovely tanks, and people getting more and more used to this division, I would put it into B tier. It has a lot of solid matchups and a lot of solid maps. You only have to learn how to play them. Now, 116th, and as I said, this is a personal list, and I think I would put it on the lower end of B tier. I know people will disagree, but my arguments are a good recon tab with 250/9s, with 234/1s, or like 231s, like /4s, like a lot of support cars there. Having Ersatztruppen as a cheap infantry choice in the infantry tab. Obviously, infantry tab being the biggest issue with it not being deep enough, and Panzer Grenadiers, but still, like deep, like that's why it's not up here with 20th Panzer, which is I think a comparable division. Then in tank tab, it has a lot of Panzer Force, which are the main tool for the Germans at the moment. It has in the anti-tank tab some Jagdpanzers. It has and Pak 40s. In the support tab, two cards of IG-18s, which are super important. And I played with the commander. It has the 100-point commander and half-track, which most of the German tank divisions have, which is pretty helpful. And tank tab also having the different choices of Panthers, but Panthers obviously not being that great, but you can at least choose between A's and B and G's. And then in the support, in the artillery tab, it has 3 different choices of off-map, which is just absolutely amazing. And its air tab is one of the better ones of the Germans as well, with J-87s that do their job and all of that. So yeah, really the off-map that allows you to break through in the mid and late game, or in the early game, whenever you want to choose them, because they also come in 3 different price categories: 90 points, 120 points, and 170 points. So really a lot of choices there in that tab. I think that's what makes this division a B tier division. It really needs a bit more infantry, and maybe like tank tab is not that amazing because of Panthers, but everything else in this division is absolutely fine, and that's why B tier I think is the place to put it. And now 14th Infantry, which goes into C tier. Does its job okay now again, but still doesn't do it good. And yeah, I think that's where we end this. Obviously, yeah, there would be 2 and 2 in D tier. It's 2 and 1 for allies in S tier. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 against 1, 2, 3, 4 in A tier. So allies still favored, but if you compare it to other tier lists lately, it got a bit closer. It got quite a bit closer in my eyes. Obviously, this is my own personal tier list. So if you think I'm a bit off here, feel free to disagree and put it in the comments. Let's get a bit of a discussion going on about this, and see you next time.